Good morning, everybody. It looks like we've got about probably half of our participants, so may give everybody a couple more minutes to join in. And then we can get started. I don't want to wait too long since we've got a bunch of stuff to talk about today. So thank you all for joining us. Today on our colleague conversation, we have the St. Louis Cardinals. Joining us is Amy, Erin, Brittany, and Adam. So we've got quite the team over there in St. Louis ready to talk to us about how museuming in a ballpark is different. A couple just housekeeping things before we get started. Feel free to jump in at any point in the conversation. So feel free to unmute yourself. If you rather just use the chat, that's fine too. We'll kind of watch that as we go. But we're going to do a very, very laid back as far as questions and answers and kind of do in real time participation. And then if you guys have any questions at the end, feel free to use the same things. But I will go ahead and then turn this over to our Cardinals staff.
Hi, y'all. I want to just start by saying hello. My name is Brittany. I am the operations manager here at the Cardinals Museum. And I'm also the treasurer currently of MAMA. So it's cool to kind of see some of our members' faces or black screens with their names on them and to be able to say hi to you all. I have been with the Cardinals for this is my 5th season, so 4 years, but I have worked in other museums prior to working here, and that is something that all 4 of us here on this team share. This is not the first place that we've worked, and while working in a ballpark may not seem as traditional as some museums, I think what we're going to find today is it's not as different as you might expect. So unfortunately, I have another call I have to hop on, and I'm really bummed about it because I've been looking forward to this, but I am going to leave you in the great capable hands of our curator, Amy Berra, our collection specialist, Erin Pruhs, and Adam Presswood just started with us last week, but he is still ready to kind of hop on and be an active participant in this conversation. So we are, as Sarah kind of mentioned, taking the colleague conversation. We're taking that conversation part pretty seriously. So please feel free to chime in with comments about how your institution might be the same or different, questions about how we do the things we do that might help you learn how you could maybe be more like a ballpark. I don't really even know what you could learn from us, but there might be something you can learn. And Amy and Erin and Adam just have such a wide range of knowledge that I know you're going to learn a lot from this. So enjoy. I'm really sorry to leave. I'll see you guys on the next one of these, hopefully, and have a great day.
Bye, Brittany.
Bye.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Berra. This is my 10th year with the Cardinals. In August, it'll be my 10th year, 11th season. We usually go by seasons around here because baseball is seasonal and it spans half of one year and a little bit into another. But before that, I was at the Missouri History Museum. I was there for almost 9 years. I was the exhibitions registrar. And I took a lot of what I learned there and brought it here where it was desperately needed. Paula Homan was our curator from 1993 to 2019. And she did the best she could with what she had. Again, you know, Brittany has said we are a museum in a ballpark. That was one of Paula's favorite lines to use. And her budget was minimal. And since I have gotten here, we have expanded our budget greatly. And so much is that things are no longer in bubble wrap and stored somewhat improperly. We're in the midst of working on that. We're getting compact storage in the fall, and we're very excited. We have 2 700 square foot storerooms. Space is very limited here. So we do the best that we can with what we have, but we, in 2013, built a beautiful 8,000 square foot museum, which is located across the way. It's not in the stadium. The previous iteration of this museum was actually in the Bowling Hall of Fame for several years, which was also across from Busch Stadium too. And prior to that, it was actually in the ballpark, but it was part of the gift shop, which is a little shady because I know that some things went missing quite a few times. So unfortunately, thankfully, we don't have that problem anymore. Knock wood. We do that around here. We're a very superstitious lot. You have to be with baseball. It's baseball magic, and it's very superstitious, which Erin makes fun of me for, and so does Brittany, but I can't help it. But anyway, we're here to talk about how we museum in a ballpark. Erin's going to share our screen and pull up a little PowerPoint we have, which has some images of the museum in it. Oops, there we go. There's our logo. There's all of us. Okay, moving on. I figured it out. She got it. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, like I said, our museum is about 8,000 square feet. It is broken up into 3 main sections because we have had 3 ballparks. So we start with Sportsman's Park, which goes from around 1913 to 1966, roughly. And then 66 to 2005 was Busch 2, which you can see on the right side of your screen. And then Busch 3, which opened in 2006. We have exhibits that are it's a very linear timeline. So we go in order of time, which is what I just said. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. But interspersed with that are offshoot galleries. Can you go back to the previous slide, please? This center image is our Champions Gallery, where we display all of our World Series titles. We have 11 of them. And then we have a case that is dedicated to our National League titles, of which we have 19. And we celebrate that. And so we try to immerse you as much as possible, make you feel like you are actually inside the ballpark, or in the case of the Champions Gallery, inside the World Series trophy. We celebrate Stan Musial, who's one of our greatest Cardinals, and he's the whole reason why we have a museum. He made 3 large donations in the 90s, but also in the 60s when they opened the original gift shop museum. He was responsible for contacting a lot of former players and alumni, asking them to donate, and I say that with air quotes, their items, because technically they were loans. They interspersed the word donate and loan, and oh my goodness. The paperwork is a nightmare when it comes to some of those older things. I have spent the last 10 years actually trying to sort that out. I have become really good at obituary searches and whitepages.com searches to get current addresses and phone numbers for some of our lenders and their family members. But, you know, there's always work to do with that. And unfortunately, you know, back in the day, they didn't do things like we do it now. So there is a lot of cleanup. So I guess that would be a similarity, because I know provenance is a lot of the big part of the problem for some collections. And I'd say some of it, maybe 40% of our collection has questionable provenance. But that's okay. Next slide.
Amy, ordinarily, I would never interrupt. I don't know if you're seeing the messages in the chat, but your slides aren't moving.
Oh, right. About
So we're just seeing the title page.
It's still just on the title.
Oh, really?
slide.
Yes.
Erin, did you select the screen? Okay, hold on. Stop share. All right. No, we weren't seeing any of the messages. So sorry about that.
That's fine. Adam and I were just like waiting for a minute to interrupt you guys.
How about now?
Still the title slide.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
Oh, that's weird.
Well, I guess we can't do the current slide. Can we do it this way?
I mean, it's
Oh, I know why, because she has two screens. This is why. Okay, hold on a second. We'll get it. We'll get it. We'll get it. There, it's this one. I think. Share. How about
That
now?
looks right.
Yes.
Is it full screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. But is it changing? No.
Oh,
Okay. Well. Okay. This is great. I love Zoom. Screen 2. Let me try this. How about now? It's not changing. I don't, okay, we're gonna just have to do it on Erin's little screen. And I'm sorry that it's not enlarged. Share, so share. All right, we're gonna get it again. Share screen. Which one is it? Screen 1. Okay. How about now?
they're changing.
Yes.
Are they changing? Okay.
They're just not changing on my.
They're just not changing on Erin's second screen, which that's okay.
That's fine.
Okay. Let's see if we can make this smaller to make it bigger. How about that? Okay. So right here on the left side of your screen is Bush 2. In the center is our Champions Gallery, and on the right is actually part of our Sportsman's Park Gallery. Each gallery is centered around a stadium model, as you can see in this picture on the right, and a little bit on the left. But it's very much a pathway through the museum. It's self-guiding. And we also expand into the history of our Cardinals logo, which is in the center. And on the left is our special exhibits gallery. It's roughly 700 square feet. We change it out every year. We're very fortunate to have a lot of anniversaries. And so we are able to celebrate a lot of our team's accomplishments through that. Last year was the 10-year anniversary of the 2011 World Series. And if anyone's a baseball fan knows that it is the greatest Game 6 of any World Series ever. And I refuse to take any comments on that. This year is, we are celebrating the 40th anniversary of the 1982 World Series. And this exhibit was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun to come up with creatively. So in terms of our exhibit, our museum team, we work together to come up with our ideas for our exhibits. And I do the writing and the design, as well as our team, Erin and I, do the installation. And this exhibit was really interesting because I wanted one piece from every guy on the roster. So that's about 35 players. Some players respond, some players don't. We worked with a lot of collectors to get a lot of these items. So ultimately it came together, but it was looking a little iffy towards the end. So that kind of brings me to how we collect here at the Cardinals Hall of Fame. Let's see. Oh, I'm skipping ahead, sorry. So we work with our clubhouse. We work with Authentics, National Baseball Hall of Fame, fans and collectors. So whenever big moments happen during games, I will reach out to our Authentic supervisor, Eric Jaffrey, and say, hey, looks like Miles Michaelis is gonna have a no-hitter. I want a ball from that game, and I want him to autograph it if he is willing. Well, and then, they went and spoiled that final strike, on the final out. Yeah, so that didn't happen, but it's okay. Other moments will come up, although that one hasn't really happened since I want to say 1981, I think, was the other no-hitter here, but that's okay. We just go with the flow. We're lucky that our fans live through the history and they collect it as much as we do. So we do rely on a lot of our really savvy fans, those fans who are actively purchasing through Authentics. I'd say 10% of our museum is loans, maybe 10 to 15%, but for the most part, we have 25,000 pieces in our collection. We are the second largest privately owned baseball collection outside the National Baseball Hall of Fame. And the DeWitts are very involved in Cardinals history, and we are very fortunate to have team owners who are willing to purchase for us and go out of their way to get things for us, things that are needed for the museum. Do you have any thoughts about that here? No?
You're doing great.
Okay, thank you. So as you can see, our exhibit spaces are, we have our museum, but we also have exhibits that go through Cardinals Nation, which is the building. Now, why is, oh boy, Cardinals Nation, the building. So what you're looking at here is the Hall of Fame Club, which is an actively used space. It's used for pre-game parties. There is food and drink in this area. So as you can see, these two cases that are on the outside of the museum doors get blocked a lot. They get food stations placed in front of them. They get a table with a chair on top of it. So fortunately, all of the items that are in this case are reproduction. Nothing is real because this place does get a lot of sunlight, as you can see from the photo on the left, or I mean on the right. And with the food and drink, it's just easier to put props in these cases, even though I really didn't want to put objects in there. The first year we were open, we actually had authentic objects in there until we saw how they use the space, and then we put in reproductions. We also have spaces in the stadium, and those are special ticketed areas. You have to have a special ticket to the Cardinals Club or the Champions Club to be able to get into those spaces. And I really have to think about what we put in there, because during the off season, these spaces are not conditioned unless there's an event going on. Again, here's Cardinals Nation Restaurant. This is some seating area, and behind the bar, which this gets trashed a lot. These things these are team issued jerseys, but they're not worn by players. And when we take them down and swap them out, we have other uses for them. We use them as props or, giveaways or things like that. So we do repurpose as much as we can for stuff that might get a little messed up because it's in the restaurant. But we do not accession those pieces. Here's another view of the Champions Club. For anyone who's ever been to the stadium, I get this question a lot. Are these trophies the real trophies? Because I've seen the trophies in the museum and there's trophies over here. And my answer is yes, they're both real. They're all real. This is the second set. We call these the owner's trophies. So the trophies that are presented to the team on the field are in the museum, and those rarely leave the museum. Other than for really special events like player reunions and things like that. We'll bring that out for them like we did for 2011, and we'll bring the 1982 over when they have their reunion in August. But we do have behind the bar here over on the right, we have a simple 1982 display of pennants. We have to change that out every year, even though I'd really rather not, but we kind of have to. It's fine. We go with the flow a lot around here. But the cool thing, and Erin actually said this, do you want to say what you said before about in the building we work in?
Oh, right. So we were talking about how, so I worked at all kinds of museums, natural history museums, historic houses, history museums. And history here literally is happening like 100 feet from us. Like we can hear it happening.
Yeah.
And that's something I've never experienced before, especially with natural history museums where it's like dinosaurs.
Stuffed taxidermied animals.
Yeah. So the fact that like we actively see and literally hear our history happening.
Yeah.
And then, like she said, can go ahead and contact the clubhouse or Authentics to try to be like, hey, this just happened, like right there.
Yeah.
Can we try to get that?
Yeah.
So that's something that I've never experienced before, is like literally seeing something happening and then trying to collect immediately for the museum.
Literally the shirt off a player's back.
Yeah.
I've had, we had a rookie who, hit a home run at his first at bat, and it was really exciting. And so I just took a chance and said, hey, I really love his batting gloves. He came off the field, took them off and handed them. So when I got them, they were still damp from his sweat, which is really disgusting, but it's so cool at the same time. That doesn't happen very often. We do get some that are some jerseys that are not quite so fresh. But the thing that I like to say is the dirtier it is, the better. And that was such a complete 180 from what I had been taught. And you don't want to take the dirt off. You want the dirt to be there, which is really different from what I learned even at the History Museum. You want your items to be
the
preserved.
Best.
Yeah, just
pristine.
Yeah, but no, we want broken bats. We want dirty jerseys, smelly. I don't really want smelly jerseys. I have gotten a few of those. It's pretty gross, but you just air them out and they're okay. But anyway, we try to engage our fans as much as we can. We have opportunities. We do artifact spotlights for every Friday home game, followed by a flashback Friday. And then we do Saturday signings where a player will come in and sign memorabilia for fans. We do a Hall of Fame induction every year where we induct a fan voted player, usually two. Well, we started out with two, now it's down to one, with a veteran player and then sometimes an organizational pick, which we have this year. So that's really exciting. And again, when it's someone like Charles Comiskey, who played in 1882, you got to get creative with how you find the family members. And thankfully, they have kept that name going. And so I found Charles Comiskey 3. And so now he's going to come and his whole family is so excited. And it harkens back to really moving forward with how we present our history, because technically Cardinals joined the National League in 1892, but Comiskey played for the Brown Stockings, which were the early Cardinals, if you will, for several years. So we're actually looking back a little further, and that's fun, but it's also really hard to find objects for that, unfortunately.
But we talk about with like a lot of these things, so like Flashback Friday, which we get an old player and to do an interview, and Saturday signings. It's one of those things where it's like, again, the person who made the history in which we have things on exhibit or in our collection, they're now made available for the general public to be within like 3 feet of them.
And we try to pull an object that's relatable to them. We had Judd Clark in the museum a couple of weeks ago. We pulled his glove out, and this is where we differ. Sometimes we differ. So we let former players handle their objects. We give them the choice on whether or not they want to wear gloves or not. It depends on the fragility of the object. If it's too fragile, I will not let it happen. But if it's something like this was his glove, he wore it for 10 years, he's not going to hurt it. It was his. We let them do that. And that is something that took a long time for me to work through. I still sometimes have a little about it, but we are always there. Erin's like ready to ready to take it back as soon as possible, but we do let that happen once in a great while. We don't like it, but we do it.
Jack Clark touched it a lot.
Yeah, he did. But yeah, so that's that. Up next, we actively update our history as it happens. We have a leaderboard with our all-time leaders. After every game, it gets updated. And I'm really looking forward to seeing Albert Pujols' name move up through the leaderboard. He's probably going to be one of our second greatest Cardinal. Castana is our first, so Albert will be our second. But then when Yadi retires, to me, he'll be our first favorite because Yadi's the best. So you may remember in the off season, we had what's a lockout. So the Players Association and MLB were working on a new contract. And until they firmed that up, we were not allowed to display any images of current players or active players on the roster. So we had to cover active player photos and remove them, including bobbleheads. So that was fun, especially when we had our 2011 exhibit and there were still 5 players who were active, and we had to go through and either remove their photo or cover it up with something else. Or what else did we do?
I know one of the collages, it was just too much.
Yeah.
Too much of it was being covered up, and we just had to take off.
We had to take it down.
An entire panel of images.
Yeah.
It was just.
Yeah.
Well, and it was more than just their images because it was their signature too.
Yeah, their signature. So any bats that were autographed, not an autographed model bat, because some bats have that inscribed into the barrel. I mean that they physically signed, we had to remove or turn so that you could not see, because we were selling tickets to the museum. So it technically violated the CBA. So
our holding history. So we have a place where you can hold their 6 different game used bats and the 2 World Series rings. And
with gloves.
With
they
gloves.
do wear gloves.
They wear gloves.
Just the general public gets to do that, but they have to wear gloves.
But for the current players, the only one that got to stay was Yadi's bat because he didn't sign it. The other 2 we had to take off and put it away.
Yeah, Paul Goldschmidt and Dylan Carlson, because they had autographed them.
And it's one of those things where, a lot of fans come into the museum frequently, and all of a sudden, instead of having 6 bats, there's 4.
Yeah.
And so that was a question that came up a lot, is like, what happened?
Yeah.
I was like, well, it's the lockout. You can't see their signatures.
Yeah. So we were very happy when that ended, and
99 days, right?
something like that.
It was like right under 100 days.
Yeah. It was fun.
But I was doing it internally with our lawyers and walking
Whew.
around
Yeah.
and deciding what we can and can't do.
It also impacted our social media that we had planned for the museum, because we do a lot of fun, engaging things for our fans, and we really had to reevaluate some of that as well. Oh, dear. Is this the
Is that a
last? That's the
slide?
last slide. But some things that we have to deal with is that, while we do have a built-in audience that is Cardinals fans, that's a pro, during the off season, our visitor numbers plummet. It's cold. Nobody wants to come downtown. So we have to come up with really creative ways to get people to engage with the museum. And especially during COVID, we did a lot of webinars. We did some in-person going through the museum. We unfortunately opened a new exhibit, and then everything shut down, and it was really beautiful, and I was really proud of it, and no one got to see it. So we did a webinar where I just walked around and showed people the exhibit. But thankfully, things are opening, and we're seeing some really good numbers this year, which is great. Also, being for profit, we cannot have volunteers. We are it. This is your museum staff as far as the curatorial side. We lost our assistant curator due to cutbacks during COVID, and have not been able to regain that position, unfortunately. So Erin and I are it. So in addition to preparing for this storage update this fall, trying to maintain all of the paperwork and and create new exhibits and do rotations and everything. It falls on the two of us to get all that done. It's a lot, but we're a great team, and I'm really lucky to have her on my team. I am. Yeah, I think that's.
I guess another weird thing though, I just think about exhibits. You know, it is just the two of us, and we do all the mounts in-house.
Yeah.
Amy does all the design and
Yeah.
layout stuff, and then
Yep.
Megan, who's on our team, does the graphics.
Yeah.
We print a lot of graphics in-house, the bigger stuff, obviously a different company.
Yeah.
We are fortunate though to have accessibility to the stadium's carpenters and
Yes.
painters.
Yes.
So like we're not personally repainting the exhibit galleries.
No.
Or like really big, heavy things that
We're not welding.
We're not.
We're brazing brass, but we're not welding steel. Thankfully.
Yeah. So
What is happening? I don't know.
thanks, Heather. Yeah. So some of these like it is just the two of us, and we are doing a lot of the work. We are very fortunate to have a lot of very skilled professionals that have been doing this for decades that, you know, I've worked at, we're a small museum team, but, you know, I've worked at museums too, where like, we didn't have access to like electricians and an IT department. I mean, they don't necessarily know what's happening, but they are there and trying.
Yeah.
So
we're 8 years in, and a lot of our AV is starting to fail. So I am in the midst of a capital project planning, which, you know, we don't get to apply for grants or things like that. So I have to convince ownership that this is something that is necessary and needed, but I have to create a scope of work. So it's, you know, I'm not an AV person, so I'm learning as I go. But we have some really great ideas, and hopefully we're going to be able to get those taken care of relatively soon, i.e. next season.
Well, with the funding too, I was talking to some friends last night in museums, and they all work for nonprofits. They all have had recent compact storage, and you know, they get to apply for grants. So all theirs were completely grant funded.
Yeah.
And for us, it's the same thing. It's like Amy had to, and Paula was still here at the time too, like come up with
a 5-year plan,
and try justification.
Yeah. And
basically go into the owners and being like, please help us and give us money.
Please let us have, you know, $250,000 so that we can do compact storage, so that, you know, this collection that they have invested in is protected as much as it is. If you're going to spend the money to buy the object, you have to spend the money to protect the object. And that's one of the very first things I said when I got here was, you know, why are things in cardboard boxes? Why are things still wrapped in bubble wrap? What is going on? And Paula's reasoning was, well, we've moved 3 times. Our storage has had to move 3 times. And we just didn't have the staff to really manage the collection well. So she's like, that's why you're here. And that's what I tell Erin. That's why you're here. So I'm really excited about the compact storage. I'm so excited about it. It's the dream.
But with that also, like, so we have winter warm up happens in January.
Yeah, Martin Luther King weekend.
And one of the presentations that I do is about, that's the thing, is like with the built-in fan base, we have fans that are just as into Cardinals history as we are. And so the presentation I give is like, how can they take care of their Cardinals collection? And it's the same thing. It's like, you put all this time, energy, and money into your own personal collection. Why not spend a fraction of that protecting it? And so it's interesting, not that, you know, other museums don't have super fans that also collect the same things that museum has. I mean, I've never really worked somewhere where someone was like I worked at Pabst Match and nobody was an eccentric 1800s Pabst family person, but you know,
they're out there.
They're out there. They're
out there. You never know. You'd be surprised what people collect.
this is a place where like there are a lot of collectors who have a lot of things in their collections that we wish we had, but they got to. So it's, you know, having that discussion with them. There's, you know, some people, we have the same things with museums where it's a conflict of interest, obviously, if we collect what the museum wants.
Yes.
But that rule only applies to the museum team, and you have hundreds of other people that work in the stadium. And that doesn't apply to them. So there's a lot of people that we work with in this building who do collect Cardinal stuff, who do have nice stuff, who come to us asking for advice on how to preserve it.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting.
It is. When I got here, we didn't even have a collections policy. We didn't have any sort of procedures or anything like that. We, Danielle DiGiacomo, who was the previous, before Erin got here, she actually wrote our collections policy for us. It's really exciting. And when Erin got here, she was like, "Shoo, I'm so glad you have this," because I could see conflicts of interest happening. Yeah. But, you know, I see question from, 3 questions. Okay. When do you change your exhibits if your museum is open during the off season? So we change our exhibits out in March, and we basically put up pipe and drape. So the special exhibits gallery, which is over here on the left side of the screen. Oh dear. Okay, it's over here on the left side of the screen. We're fortunate enough that it has two little entrances, and we just wall those off with fabric. And we take everything down. The painter comes in, fills all the holes in the walls, which he's going to have a lot for this one because I lined the walls with AstroTurf, which in idea, it's fantastic.
We had a plan.
It didn't work.
So there's random screws everywhere.
But it's okay. It's okay. It's fine. It's fine.
People love it.
It's gonna be great.
The aesthetic is there.
You may just leave it up.
Okay.
Kidding. So we usually take the month of March and have that exhibit open just prior to opening day. We have a members event. We do have a membership program, and maybe Adam can talk about that at the end if he would like to, if he's ready to, because he's only been here like a week and a day. But yeah, so that is the plan. We spend, like, right about now is when I start thinking about what our next exhibit is going to be. And I work on that as well as our induction cases. We do cases for induction every year. And then rotations as well. But we did all of our rotations early this year. So on that, there was a lot of them. So we have one more planned. But we do it when the museum's open. We just cordon off the area, put up stanchions, and fans are we keep it as secret as possible. And fans think it's really intriguing, you know, what's behind the curtain. And
well, so there's a couple other exhibits so there's a few rotations that we need to get done before opening day.
Yeah.
So we have, obviously, like she said, our big exhibit. But there's also
stadium spaces. We do those usually in like February.
There's smaller ones. So there's this one that needs to get done. The
restaurant we try to do before opening day because it's harder to get jerseys, and with supply chain issues, we weren't able to get some of the jerseys, the blue and the cream we weren't able to get until about a month ago, maybe.
There's this gallery over here, which is the current players case. That changes out. We have a new acquisitions case that changes out. So there's like, I think at one point I counted, and it's like five or six that has to get done by opening day. So like March is very busy. It is constantly just installing exhibits, and it's just the two of us,
just prepping for the season.
And then and then Hall of Fame is in August. It happens the week leading up to the induction. That happens.
So as far as how we increased our budget, well, that was me in 2019 when Paula retired and I was made curator. I said, I can't do the exhibits that we want to do for this amount of money. So I just increased my budget. And when I had to go before Brad, who's our CFO, and defend it, I was just like, listen, this is what we did before. If we want to keep improving and keep our fans engaged, i.e. keeping them coming back and spending money and wanting to buy memberships, this is what needs to happen. So every year I've increased it about $5,000, and it's gone great. It's gone fine. Yeah. But also, you know, when we were when I wanted to do, so this was year 4 of our 5-year plan for compact storage. So it actually worked out pretty great. But I took Brad, the CFO, and I took Bill DeWitt III through our exhibit, or not our exhibit, our storage spaces. And I'm like, look, this is what we're dealing with on a daily basis. We have limited room for a collection that we increase exponentially every year. We're collecting at least 75 pieces per year, potentially. Not to mention, you know, interesting purchases that they might make at auction, or, you know, donations, things like that. That 75 things, 50 to 75 things is from the clubhouse alone, roughly. Especially COVID. It was really interesting. We got more from the COVID season than we did years prior. It was a lot. And
Well, because a lot of things happen. So there's
Yeah.
a lot of anniversaries that happen for baseball as
Mhm.
well. So aside from COVID, it was like there's all these other major moments, because baseball, it reminds me of the theme for the Mama Conference this year, where it's like, we're not, now I'm gonna misquote it, but
You sure
essentially
are.
history is not in a vacuum, like all of our history is connected or something like that.
Yeah.
Where it's like baseball sees all the different political stuff and social events, everything that's happening out in the world is affected within baseball as well. And so reflected. So like any major history moments that happen out there happen here too. And a lot of stuff happened in 2020.
Yeah.
There was the 100-year anniversary of the Negroes League.
Yeah.
And then we were supposed to have the Field of Dreams.
Yeah. Oh,
And there was, I don't know, there's a lot of things just like that was already in the making.
London. We were supposed to
We'll
have
do
an MLB
London.
game in London. I volunteered as tribute to go.
Yeah. Well, I don't understand why.
I mean, obviously you need a curator there for that. Obviously.
So, you know, 2020 was a big year of just.
Yeah.
But
And we were here. I mean, we were here, but we weren't. We were home for a lot of it. That was fun, museuming from home. I'm sure all of you know about
It was
that.
so sucky.
We used a Citrix to link into our Past Perfect and Erin, and we all had little tasks, but we can only work a certain amount. But I was working on exhibit planning, so that was actually easier to do at home because nobody was bothering me. Not that you bother me, you don't bother me.
As she's actually sitting
best.
in my office.
You're the
It's
best.
fine.
But just like, you know, I often say I can't do my job because my job gets in the way of me doing my job. Yeah, and then we lost Kayla. I mean, we didn't lose her. She had to leave, and
She's still alive. I just
she's
talked
still
to her
alive. She's
yesterday.
fine. She's great. But her position, we lost her position, which was devastating for both of us. I've never had that happen before, and her loss is still, it's still very felt. We're lucky that we have an intern this year, Levi, who's here for the year. That was a new thing. I was trying to get into UMSL's Museum Studies, their 2-year stipend intern program, but there were issues with us paying the school and then the school paying the student. We would rather pay the student directly. So we have, we answered the 2 questions that there were. Yeah, no.
Well, because prior to that, so all the other interns.
Oh yeah, we had
here-
interns that were from Yale
Yeah, we could only have Yale interns.
for 10 weeks. It was the Bulldogs Across America program because the DeWitts, our owners, went to Yale and they like to keep that going. So we would have a non-museum student come here for 10 weeks and learn how to work in a museum, and then once we got them the way that we wanted them to be, they left, which is always the way that it is. But it was somewhat helpful, although not really. We're still picking up the pieces from some past interns, unfortunately, but it happens. It was a learning experience for them. But yeah, Levi wants to be in the museum, so that's why he's here. Yeah. Anybody have any other questions? Adam, do you want to talk about membership?
Actually, I'm going to defer right now because I'm still learning my way through membership. And I will recommend that if anybody has any questions pertaining to that, they just go ahead and email me at apresswood@cardinals.com. There was a question that seems to have disappeared from the chat about whether or not there's a collection plan and if there are any gaps in the collection that have been identified.
Yes. So Erin and I have been doing inventories in preparation for our collection storage project. And one of those was to go through all of our baseball caps and assess those. And I already know that we have a gap in team jerseys from, I would say, the 50s and 60s and 70s, especially the 70s. And there are some things in the 90s, just because the way that the museum was formerly run, that it was not a good relationship between the players and the museum, unfortunately. So we have had to work really hard to improve that relationship and also get familiar with the clubhouse policies and how they do things. And we have to be very patient, especially when it comes to some of the bigger players. They're not quite as willing to part with their things. Some more than others. Once they know what it's for, they get very excited. And like Dylan Carlson, he comes to the museum constantly because he's so excited. He brings his family. His family loves to see that his things are on exhibit, that he's one of our holding history players, because he's, one of our young up and comers. So I try to make sure to represent. And that's my ultimate goal, is to make sure that in Cardinals history, all are represented, but there are big gaps where representation matters and we just don't have those items. We're working on it. We've recently acquired some jerseys for some of our first Black players. And it's something that is very passionate for me to work on, very educational, and also necessary to do. And I want, when little kids come through the museum, I want them to be able to see themselves there and see themselves, hey, that guy looks like me, I could play like him. So it was important for me this past season, the off season, to update our Negro Leagues case, to add in an AAG PBL, which is the All-American Girls Baseball League, a case that celebrates some of our women baseball players, women from St. Louis who were on those teams, and also to expand the Browns, because they're not, the Cardinals weren't the only team here in St. Louis. And that's been a really important thing to do. So hopefully we can just continue to move forward and move forward with a lot of our types of things like that. I think really hard about the kinds of things that we want to collect every year. I look at what we've collected in the past and who we don't have things from. And I know it feels a little like predicting the future as far as whether or not a player is going to do well, but that's a chance that we have to take. Lane Thomas. And my director, I have to keep him from getting overexcited very quickly. So Nate doesn't have any museum experience. He's a restaurant guy. And so this has been a big learning curve for him. And he tried to, get onto the curatorial game a little bit. And said, oh, we've got this rookie, Lane Thomas. We need to collect more from our rookies. Well, Lane never lived up to what he what he thought he was going to do. So he's on a different team now. So we bring that up to Nate every once in a while. We just kind of Lane Thomas whenever we feel like he's overstepping. No, that's a little harsh to say, but
yeah, I don't know. I guess this is another point too, where it's like, you know, like Brittany said, so Amy, myself, Brittany, and Adam all have museum backgrounds. Like that's what we went to school for. That's what we have a background in. That's what we worked in other places. And we have monthly calls with it's our heritage group. So the other teams, you know, have people that do, you know, archivists or the object, the Yankees and the Reds both have museums. But it's interesting where, and the Royals. Sorry.
Yeah. Forget the Royals.
I've been there too. They're not freaking. It's a very pretty museum.
They're lovely people.
They're great.
It's American League.
But it's interesting talking to some of them because unlike us, where there's a lot of us, you know, like I said, the four of us all have museum backgrounds. The other teams, it seems like some of the people just kind of got pulled in from other departments. So like, oh, you worked in communications, so you dealt with old books. Can you now be our archivist? And they're just like,
sure.
Okay, that's what's happening.
So we're working really hard to try and change that view. And I think we've really made an impact with our group that it's not just you can't just throw somebody in there and expect them to know how to do things. So
I say one of the best examples is the handling of the World Series trophies.
Yes.
So, you know, we do the handling. But other teams, like there's someone that now works for the Cardinals that used to work for the Red Sox. She worked in security. It was security's team to travel with the trophy and handle the trophy. And so there's a lot of teams where it's just like random departments do it instead of someone who's trained in like handling objects.
Yeah. It was like that when I got here.
Yeah.
I changed that real quick.
You know, so that's definitely something different where, you know, a lot of a lot of teams are getting to the point where they're trying to build up more and they're seeing what a lot of other teams are doing.
They see what we do. They see the value in what we're doing and they want to copy that, which is fantastic. More power to them. And I have consulted for the Mets and the Reds a little bit. And with the Mariners. And I know the Rockies, their archivist, he's an actual archivist. He came and looked at our collection a couple of years ago. And I think so it's great. I really like to see it moving forward in this way. And hopefully more teams will get more museums and more museum people working there. I saw a question. How do you locate the jersey caps your collections is missing? Well, we were very fortunate to hashtag goals for other teams. I love that. Yes, always. So finding locates jersey capture collections is missing. So we're fortunate to have a fan base and I have collector friends and sometimes we purchase, sometimes they'll say, hey, National Baseball Hall of Fame called me up and said, hey, we have a cap from the 70s that we are deaccessioning. Do you want it? And I said, absolutely. It's from 73. We don't have anything representing 73 in the collection. So it doesn't have a player association, but at least it's an example. So it's by chance. I try to keep an eye on the auctions. We get a lot of auction catalogs because we've bought a lot over the years. So it's mostly by chance that we find things. It's easy to get them now, the modern day stuff. It's harder to get the other stuff. I have a gentleman that I'm working with currently, and I'll tell you this story. So when he was 13 years old, he was at the 1964 World Series. I think 67 World Series. And Tim McCarver was walking to the dugout and he leaned over and took the hat off of Tim McCarver's head and has ever since then had such a feeling of guilt and just eating away at him. And he's like, I'm in my 70s now. I was a stupid kid. This has always plagued me. Would you mind reaching out to Tim McCarver and see if he remembers this moment? Now, you just think about how many hats has Tim McCarver worn over the years? How many
decades ago that was?
Yeah, it was like 50 plus years ago. And Tim's got some health problems, so it's not likely. But I said, I'll definitely get a message to him and see, because he says, otherwise, I'm just going to donate it to you. And I said, okay, I really want that. But I have to do my due diligence. I can't just say, oh, well, Tim doesn't remember. Give me the cap. I'm actually speaking to our alumni coordinator, Larry State, and he's reaching out to Tim to find out and have a conversation with him. And then I will let David, I think his name is, I'll let him know either way. Either way, we're more than likely going to get the cap, but there's that whole ethical question. I can't just say, no, he doesn't remember. Give me the cap. I've got to actually try. So yeah, we'll get there. It's a long road. We've got lots of stuff and lots of collectors in the meantime that we can pull from, and maybe someday I'll convince them they don't really need that Joaquin Andahar hat. They really should just donate it to the museum, because we're gonna share it with other fans, because we don't have anything from him. Oh, we have a jersey. Now we have an Andahar jersey. Oops. Julian Javier, that's who we need. Anyway. Anybody have any other questions?
I guess I'll make one quick note about our membership. So I know Adam's new, but this is related to Hall of Fame induction. So we have varying levels of memberships. And so our highest one,
Levi.
oh, hey, Levi.
Hi, Levi.
Our highest one ends up getting people seats at our Hall of Fame induction ceremony up front. And so I know my first year here,
and behind the scenes tour.
And behind the scenes tour, we do a bunch of stuff for them. It gets you a lot. But I know the first year that I was here, that upper level members got to briefly sit, or they sat next to whose family? Sat next to someone's family, or they briefly also got to see Yadi and Wayno.
Yadi and Wayno came over because Scott Rowland and Jason Isringhausen were getting inducted, and played with them, and they were in their uniforms, and they came over and sat in the seats, and fans went nuts for that.
So those members, those upper tier members, were sitting like right behind Yadi and Wayno.
Yeah.
And so that's something where it's just like,
you can't.
Yeah, okay. Like worth the money.
Yeah, well worth the ultimate member $1,000 level. Yeah.
And we do we're a baseball museum, we have bobbleheads. And so our membership program also makes limited, exclusive bobbleheads specific for our, different players. And that's something else that's,
Those aren't them.
They're up here.
Oh, there they are. Get Mike.
Oh, nope.
Nope. You don't have any of them here. Sorry, Erin can't show you. I don't have any of them in my office.
A bunch of bobbleheads, but none of those.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Anyways. So that's life in a ball. Oh, we got one more. What's that? That's Levi. That's Levi saying hi to everyone. Oops. What happened? Did I just click on Adam? Oh, this one. Okay. That's it. That's life in a ballpark. That's how we museum here.
Thank you all for sharing. I knew some of that, but there's a lot of stuff that I wouldn't have even thought about, like handling world trophies.
Yeah, right.
Oh, right. Most people don't actually know how to handle objects like that. That could be a problem.
80 troy ounces of silver, I think it's made from. Yeah, with some gold, and it's made by Tiffany. It weighs about 32 pounds. We carry them on the field every opening day.
One question that we get a lot is how much do some of our trophies and
How much do the trophies weigh?
People are always like, can I pick that up? And it's like,
Nope.
No.
No. Do I think you physically can lift it above your head? It's very awkward. So no.
No.
No, please do not.
They want to Lion King it,
Right.
It's gonna go
Right over your head.
Especially the acrylic ones.
which random side note, for some reason, think about this. Okay, so I briefly moved here right before the Blues won the Stanley Cup, and they came out with the Stanley Cup wearing white gloves.
Yeah. Oh,
This is a side note. We do not use white gloves.
no, nitrile all the way. They were using white gloves when I came here.
They also shower with that trophy.
Yeah,
They
he
do
puts
not-
the Stanley Cup. He puts the Stanley Cup trophy in the shower and sprays it with soap. Yeah. Yep. Well, you know, you got people eating muscatoli out of it, making margaritas with it. That's
Yeah, we use silver cleaner and then
yeah.
dry it off with cotton balls. Like we did. I do not shower with the World Series trophies like they do with the Stanley Cup.
No,
Random side note. I
Yeah.
just thought that was
that's crazy. And he was offended that I was offended that he did that. It's like,
Should
well,
be.
how else am I supposed to clean it? Like,
Like with silver
calcium
cleaner?
carbonate and you know, cotton swabs, gentle,
not in the shower with you.
not in regular
Gently?
water. Yeah. Anyway, thank you guys so much for having us.
I'm
We
sorry we
appreciate
talked
it.
so much.
Yeah, we did. I gotta go. I have to take my kid to the eye doctor. I'm sorry.
Thank you guys for joining us. Just as a sign up before we end, there is going to be a July colleague conversation. I just got word yesterday that that is going to be Wednesday, the 20th at 1, and it'll be talking about the MAMA Diversity Scholarship. So if anybody's interested in that, also watch out for that. I'll be sending that email and those details out here shortly. But thank you guys for joining us from St. Louis today.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.